Last week we looked at uppercase bubble letters, basic, consistent, not puffy bubble letters. This week we're going to do the second version of that, which is the lowercase, aka the ones I struggle with. I feel like I'm getting a little bit better at those because I'm forcing myself to do them and practice them, which is a lesson to all of you that practice is the thing that works. I did a block letter video a couple of weeks ago on lowercase letters that kind of gives you the basis for this. So if you got the time, I'd suggest going and following whatever link is up here in the atmosphere to go check out that episode of Llamas Love Lettering to kind of get the hang of the technique of it. You don't have to if you don't want to. You can just start this way if you want to. Get a little bit of practice with it so that we can move on to the land of the puffy and the more interesting bubble letters. So if that's what you're interested in, give this video a big old thumbs up and let's get going. Like in the previous bubble lettering video, the uppercase, I traced out my alphabet ahead of time to trace around because this like skinny sort of consistent style of bubble lettering is not one that I do all the time. So in order to provide a good like reference for you, I wanted to make sure I was giving myself the best possible chance for it because God, I fucking suck at it sometimes. But I am practicing, so by the end of the year, I am suave as fuck with this. So to make sure you get it right, instead of just doing like your regular style of letter, this blue is representing a pencil, by the way, do a nice big fluffy letter. So it gives you plenty of space rather than like my regular B, a nice big fluffy letter to trace around. If you keep your letters too small, you will find that you are going to be super frustrated in practicing, and nobody wants that. There's enough frustration in the world as it is, am I right? So we're just going to start tracing, and notice again, just like in the previous video, which I'm going to keep referencing, you just don't start on a corner. Make sure that you are leaving enough space to sort of begin it so that you can keep from having things become too pointy. You want everything to be soft and rounded in one stroke. One long, smooth stroke. Smooth. And it's okay if you soften the corners up a little bit, if that's the easiest way to keep them soft and smooth. There's no rules to this. You don't have to be perfect. You just need to get a nice feeling to it. You just want to try and keep each area sort of consistent with it. And then you can make it poofier and more awkward looking later. Right now you want to focus on a nice even sausagey situation, like a nice curly little sausage. As I'm going around the D, my nice smooth stroke, this could get really skanky. You'll notice that I'm trying to keep this line here nice and even, and that this is also matching this in terms of thickness. You don't want the thickness to be all over the place with this style. You really, if you're thinking in terms, I talked in the last video about balloon animals. If you're thinking about balloon animals, you don't want to have any of the spots where it gets all twisted. You want to like be thinking about these. It's just a nice smooth situation where there's that E is super awkward looking. Notice the placement of this. If I had moved it slightly this way, it would have looked much better like the one that I have on the reference sheet. So the placement of these holes matters very much. And here's a perfect example of what happens when you place it in a poor placement position. Have you seen Hairspray with the Penny Pingleton who's gonna have to wear a giant P on her blouse every day to show that she's permanently punished? That's kind of where I'm thinking right now. And also kind of like I'm Sylvester the cat from Looney Tunes where I'm spitting on everything. So see how this line and this line don't add up? Like it looks kind of like this, but these do line up. That's a problem you can run into with any letter that has a crossbar or anything like that. You'll see that it just looks awkward because they don't line up. So you want to try and make sure that these match up with each other when you're practicing. It's a big thing to avoid if you're trying to avoid awkward looking letters. Now notice for the G that I just did there's still a little bit of pointiness there, but really I just sort of curved around. It's still soft looking. That's the goal. Keep it soft. Keep it soft. And see the placement of this O, this circle part here is so much better than the E. Which is odd because normally, well, my E's are usually pretty janky. Now for the H, I just curve under like it's kind of like I almost imagine like if you have your fingers like this, that's kind of what this curve feels like to me. And you notice here I didn't meet up very well. That takes practice. If you go over the whole letter again, like you follow the whole thing again and like thicken your strokes up, if you want to cover it up, and if you do it a little sloppy, it almost looks like you meant to do it that way. That's one way to cover it up. Using a thicker pen sometimes helps, but really it just takes practice and getting the hang of making sure that your lines meet up with each other. I is fairly simple. Same with J. You just sort of follow the curve, keep it nice and even, and then add your little dot on top. Now with the K and the K pants, it's the same as the uppercase K. You just kind of curve under. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just want that little divot there to signify this divot here. You just want to make sure that it's not pointy. The same with any of these letters. You want to avoid anything pointy on them because pointy will draw you right out of the style of letter. L is awesome because it's like the best one. Now for M, watch how I curve this around. I'm just curving gently, kind of like a roller coaster. And curving up, avoiding a pointiness by curving it in, avoiding a pointiness by curving it in, and that's how you get it. Same with the N. Curve it under, curve around, avoid a pointiness, curve around. Now notice this area here on both of these, I got a little bit skinnier than the bottom part. That happens a lot with M and N. It's kind of difficult sometimes to keep them looking nice and even with each other. Honestly, if it's not perfectly consistent, but it still looks okay, then fucking don't worry about it. You know, you don't have to spend all your, like, as much as I emphasize trying to stay consistent, don't try and be so consistent that you get frustrated and don't try it again, because the letters that give you the most trouble, you need to make sure to keep practicing them so that they eventually don't give you as much trouble anymore. And you notice I'm fucking up all over the place doing these. Like I said in the beginning, this is not my general forte, but what it is it's teaching you how to make these motions so that you can go on to doing other more interesting forms of bubble lettering. I sound like a total hater. Now here it gets a little bit pointy, but honestly, it's not pointy enough for me to care. Now for S, remember when you draw your S out to have it be softer and not super curved in, because trying to get super curvy on an S can sometimes be a problem. You want it to be kind of smooth and not so distinguished, because people will know it's an S, even if it's softened and not so like meh. Now for the T, remember what I said about the F with the crossbars, wanting to make them be nice and even? You want to try, watch what you're doing. Now, no, see, I totally did not do it right. I'm going to try it again without a center to work with. These kinds of crossbars are a lot easier when you have pointy corners, because then you can like go like individual lines. But when it's one motion, that's where getting this even right here and having these line up with each other can be a pain in the ass. But it gets, once you get the hang of it and it looks better, then you feel good about yourself. And those small victories are the kinds of victories I always like to celebrate. Now with U, I find it kind of like with the uppercase A, I find it really helpful for this area to really de-emphasize it, that it is not pointy and takes you right out of it. The V, same thing. You want to kind of curve around and then sort of schmoop it down rather than point it down. Now, if you get pointy there, I can't even remember. I might have gotten pointy on one of the practice sheets. I can't remember. Just trying to get the hang of softening it. Like imagine when you get like a brand new, like, God, I'm gonna talk about makeup. Like brand new lip pencil and it's pointy as shit. And then you use it a couple of times and the top of the pencil is just softer and a little bit blunter. Think about that when you're doing all of these curves that are normally pointy, like here on the W. Instead of making it pointy, I'm curving it. Think about a blunted lip pencil. All of these are curvy rather than pointy. And that's the practice that you want to get into. Now on the, I'm going to do this here so you can see kind of what I was talking about before. I have my X drawn in here and I'm going to add a little tiny guideline plus sign to show me where my, I don't know if you can even see that. Let me zoom in just a little bit more. Okay, you see how I have the X and then those little guidelines there? This helps you figure out where you want to curve the bottom parts of your X. You just sort of go to meet up with that. And that helps you keep your X looking even. Now this is a shrimpy as fuck little X. I don't think I made that little cross as big as I wanted to, but honestly, it's good enough for me. You're just trying to keep the distance here, this middle distance, as consistent as possible, because that's what makes an X look either good, and I totally wasn't paying attention, and I made it pointy. So curve it around. One smooth motion. Notice I'm doing this without the guidelines here. I'm just doing one smooth motion until I get to the top. And that gives you your nice curvy Y. Your nice curvy Y. Oh my God, I just inhaled my own spit. Now with the Z, curve it around, curve it around, curve it around. When you put your letters out, I'm gonna do B's again, I'll do bubble again. But like, if you put them next to each other like this to trace around, you're not going to be able to do it because everything's going to be like overlapping and pushing into each other. And we're not talking about overlapping right now. We're talking about a nice flat line. So just make your big poofy letters and give them a certain amount of space, however much amount you think you need. Just try and make sure that the amount of space around each letter is consistent. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to bust a freaking ruler out. You just want it to be consistent. And then you just, in your one smooth motion, do your tracing. This is not going to be perfect because I'm working smaller with a big fat pen. Random tip. The smaller you work, the smaller your tip size is, or should be. When it's a bigger tip size and you're working smaller, it looks a lot clumsier. And this looks clumsy as fuck, but it's getting the point across. Now notice I'm just sort of swooping around the letters, and they might be touching each other, and that's okay. You're just trying to have them be nice letters that work together. And see, they don't like crunch into each other and look super fucking awkward. That wasn't so bad, was it? Okay, it might have been a little bit bad, but mostly good, right? If you are looking for a reference to give you something to practice over and over and get that smooth motion of the ocean kind of practiced, yeah, smooth motion, I have some practice sheets that have just over and over again repetition to help you drill and get better at lowercase bubble letters. If you are interested in them, they are available in the Llamas Love Lettering Facebook group. And you can go search the files and search LLL 2.10 and you'll find them there. You're going to be moving into some shading and some drop shadowing techniques coming soon, as well as puffy bubble lettering and all of that good stuff. So if there's anything specific you would like to see, leave it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time.